is, and we're back on Tuesday.
So
Today's
for those who took their test last week, best of luck.
Yes.
We have a little pro and con list, depending if you want to go into a mom and pop shop, small business, and or corporation.
Or if you've been working for a long time and was wondering if you want to move.
What's all the buzz for the other one?
Yeah. We kind of dabbled our toes into each one.
We thought we'd be like very good at this is pros, this is cons, but we jump back and forth quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll get it all out there eventually.
And our pros might be your cons, and your cons might be our pros. You never know. So let's go ahead and I got nothing. Let's get into it.
It's been a valiant effort, Laura. You're listening to the PT Assistants podcast with your hosts, Ken
and Laura. Thanks for joining for another exciting episode. All right, so let's go ahead and I got nothing.
What? It's too early for you to blank.
I know. Well, that's probably the issue. My creative juices are just getting going.
Oh, I thought you were about to say they ran out.
No.
So, talking about small business, even smaller businesses like mom and pop and mom shops. What is it?
Mom and pop shops.
Mom and pop shops, and then bigger corporations. So Laura and I have worked at all three, I would say. Laura is more with the corporation now, and I went all the way down to the mom and pop shop with the smaller business side.
Yeah.
But each of them have their own benefits. They have their own downsides. So depending on which one you want to go into, it's another thing to consider when you're looking for somewhere to work.
Some of the pros and cons of it. Before we dive fully into each one, let's go ahead and just define like what we're considering a mom and pop, what we're considering a smaller business, and what we're considering like a corporation, just so like everybody kind of gets like where we're coming from. So like mom and pop is like the owners are part of the business, are working there still. They don't have a lot of employees. It's one single location. That's what
I'll say like 10 employees maybe
at the most. Not even like, to me the big thing is like mom and pop shop, like they're there working the hours. So the owners are working the hours and they're still practicing, and they're the main like treaters in a way still too.
So kind of like where I'm at now.
Yes. And then small business, I would say like owners involved, but doesn't do the day-to-day in the clinic type stuff. Can have multiple clinics, but like it's still kind of smaller. Not a large corporation. It's still kind of everything's done within the company itself. And then corporations and larger businesses, they can span, but like multiple locations.
Maybe across state lines.
Yeah, maybe across state lines, maybe just even within the same state lines. But pretty much the people who oversee it don't even work in the clinic. There's that multiple tier letter. Yeah, there's those multiple tiers of like who you go to, hierarchy. A lot of things are kind of sourced differently. But that bigger corporation. So that's kind of where we're classifying. And we both have actually worked in all three, because you did corporation during your clinical rotation. I did mom and pop during my clinical rotation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even just going down even to the interview process. Mm-hmm. So for the mom and pop shop, you usually just interview with the owners. You get hired or you don't get hired, just whatever it is. When you go to the small business level, usually you have one interview. If that goes well, then you interview with the next step up, which is usually the owner after the clinical directors and all that interview.
Or you could have both at the same time.
Or you can have both at the same time. And then the corporation, now thinking about it, that might even have more steps. Because for mine, you'll usually have an interview with usually the clinical director at that location. But then you also have to interview with the regional manager as well.
Yeah, I got lucky where I just had one interview, and it was more of the regional manager. But like,
oh, you went straight to regional manager then?
Yeah, because I think there wasn't really a clinical director for the site I was looking at, and he dictates. The regional manager kind of dictates who he wants and doesn't want hired. But The thing was getting set up for the interview was through kind of like the recruiter process. Like it goes to like a national bank, and then that bank gets sent out to each region, or, you know, based off of how it is. And then that regional hiring person calls out and sets up the meeting and does everything. Where usually like mom and pop shop, they'll give you a call back. The owners will, and say, hey, we're interested. We'd like to set up an interview. For, I would say, like the smaller businesses, it's usually like an admin or a, you know, a manager that's calling you back. And then with the corporation, it's usually like the hiring.
Yeah, like it's like, their recruitment center. Yeah. And like, oh, we're part of HR. We're
like,
here to.
They don't do anything.
At least start your process, and it's a lot more steps, I would say.
Yeah, usually.
That's just the interview. It's not even the working part, but well, and it's just funny. Like, it just starts there.
Yeah, and neither of them are bad. Like, they all feel this exact same way. Setting up the interview, that doesn't really change so much.
And I think another thing to point out as well is that our mom and pop to corporate level have all been outpatient.
Yes.
So I don't know if the process really changed for home health.
I have like a little
hospitals,
bit.
That's not really a mom and pop. You don't have mom and pop hospitals, but
home
health I think has
inpatient corporate.
Well, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think inpatient really has a mom and pop shop style like inpatient level.
I think it'd be too tough.
Home health though, because I know home health, some of them are like starting businesses. They're smaller. They have to build their clientele. Versus some other home health companies that have been doing it for a long time. They might be able to be seen more as a corporate level of home health. I think
that's the thing too. Is this kind of like applies for any type of situation. You can have this in general, because a lot of times mom and pop shops will start, you know, their goals, they start at a mom and pop, but they want to get bigger in most cases. So in a couple cases, mom and pop shops just want to be that one and done. They just want their one place to work, and that's all. They're not trying to grow the business like crazy. So I think it all just depends, but I feel like everything we're going to talk about today applies in each setting anyways, based off of just who you're working for type thing.
So let's start with the pros at the smallest level, mom and pop.
So pros is you really are close, I would say, like with the people you're working with and the owners, and your input is valued a lot more than some of the other location like settings. Where if you come in and be like, hey, this isn't working out, like the schedule or something like that, this needs to be adjusted. It's a little bit more of a like, okay, well, let's really look down and sit and value your opinion, I feel like. And again, this doesn't mean every person's like this. Some aren't, but I would say this is what I see in most mom and pop shops. So that's one of my biggest like pros, I would say. What about you?
No, I agree. I feel like it's more like almost like family oriented, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like you are a lot closer to your coworkers. There's not many of you. So it helps to, I guess, I don't want to say like create leeway, but it's easier to understand more situations. Yeah, a little bit of balance. And if you have something come up, like you can always talk to the owners and talk to them, and they can work something out with you. And things become a lot easier in that way.
Yeah, I feel like you said, a big thing is it becomes more of a family situation in most cases. And so if something does come up, like a family emergency, it's not just like, oh, they're seeing it as a number missing in a way, but like an actual person having to go through a tough time. And so there's a little bit more compassion within your workspace, I guess you could say.
And then as far as your input, where I'm working now, being more of a mom and pop shop, like my boss working with me for so long, I can definitely say my input is more validated or more valuable, like trying to figure out the flow, where patients should go, what table should be set where should just pretty much anything go. And I feel like it's just more valuable since it's a smaller place.
Yeah. And I think too, the nice thing with mom and pop shop is, at least in like definitely looking at your setting and looking at what I had, there's little benefits that are really nice. Like when I worked at a mom and pop place, the owners, you know, they were hands-on every single day, but every Friday they bought us lunch. For you, it's if like there's no patience. They send you home, and it's not like they cut your pay or anything. They're just like, go ahead, if everything's done, go ahead and go home, or you guys have gone out and played pickleball together. So I feel like there's a little bit more of like, hey, we're not just going to make you work just to make you work and do nonsense stuff just because of the fact that we're slightly
slow or something. Yeah.
Or like we're going to reward you in a different way, which is kind of nice. So
on to the cons. I would say the first one right off the bat, being newer and being a mom and pop shop, you always run the risk of it not being as successful as you would want it to be.
Yeah.
So Laura and I were talking a little bit before we started recording and mentioning that if the business isn't there, there are people likely to go. Unfortunately, in my situation, if a therapist needed to go, I'd be the first to go.
Yeah.
So there is some risk to going into a smaller, not completely established location, I would say.
Yeah, or if it was to take a dip or something like that, or if something was to happen where the business owner couldn't go forward, or he decided to sell the business, like there's just no more. You just move within like the company. It's just you're there. And I will say the second thing I feel like that can come up, that stuff, is vacation, because you're gonna get last man total pull between you and the owners.
No, that's true.
So like if you want a vacation time around Christmas, but they're like, yeah, I know, we're already taking it, like you got nothing. There's no like seniority. There's no nothing. Like it's just, sorry, you're out of luck.
I'm out of luck on there. The other one I would say, because it kind of falls more into having such a smaller staff. You don't really have coverage. You have to learn more than just your role, so you have to be flexible, which I wouldn't say is much of a con, because it can be a pro too, because you would learn like more sides of the business. But there are people that it's not like in my job description kind of mentality. Like you can't have that mentality when you're in a smaller business.
Yeah.
Everything is your job description. You have to learn to adapt to whatever setting you're required in.
Which again, I think is great sometimes, because
it can be a pro, definitely.
You learn so much about the business in general.
But I know some people just prefer not to. It's like, hey, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm hired to do.
Yeah.
Which it might not be the setting for you. Like it's all good. It's all good. It's just don't go into this setting thinking that you can only do what's in your job description.
Like you're going to be the cleaners. You're going to be the tech sometimes. You're going to be the admin. Like you're going to be answering phones. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen in other locations too, because it does. But I would say it's more prone in these smaller locations too.
Also, if you don't get along with the coworker, you're kind of SOL.
That's when I just say,
because it's so small. Like there's only like 5 of us. If we didn't get along, then that could definitely make for a very toxic environment.
I was about to say,
like I can't just transfer to another location, or I can, like you would just have to leave at that point.
So that is a big con. There is no just transferring to different location if drama does strike up. And, there's that drama that's everybody's going to butt heads at some point in time, but then there's those ones that you just can't get past. And if you can't get past it, then it does make your life situation much harder, because you can't just transfer to different location. If you like that setting or that kind of stuff, you have to leave and you have to go somewhere else if you can't stand it anymore. So that is a con, I would say. With like small mom and pop. And the thing is too, it might not even be like, because I had this when I was working, I didn't mind the owners or even the other therapists that worked there. I had an issue with some of the techs, but like that made me, I was like, I wouldn't, even if they offered me a job, I wouldn't take the job, because me and this tech butt head so bad, and she's been there longer. So like it might not even be with the whole clinic, but then you just got that one person. Parts of it, I think, is just because of the fact that when I was there, she would question everything I was doing and be like, the PT, I was doing my clinical rotations, the PT would hand me off this patient or the 2 patients, and I'd be like, hey, can you make sure that they're, I want them to do this, this, and this next, and like relay that message, because at that location, one tech would work with one of your patients while you worked with another, and then you kind of like halfway through swap. So you're giving an equal amount of time. She would always question anything I asked her to do. Well, did you check with so-and-so? is that fine? I'm like, she literally told you I'm running the treatment. Like, stop questioning everything. So
that would be a little frustrating.
So we kind of butt heads. So like, just knowing that, I was like, I couldn't work with you.
But so as we go through the progression from our mom and pop up to corporate, you'll see that the balance kind of shift, where the pros that were for this setting are going to be the cons as we go higher up the tier.
Yep.
So going into small business, it's probably the more balanced between both, because you have the job security. It's been established for longer. Yeah. You have different multiple locations that if you did want to move to a different location, if you didn't get along with somebody or something happened, you can move to a different location. You're still depending on how many employees they have. You might also run into the fact that you can't really find coverage if you need time off,
because they're running at like max capacity, but with the least amount of employees usually.
Yeah, so they don't want to have so many people on retainer and just be paying them for doing nothing. So it's maybe not every place, but you may run into an issue where getting that time off might be a little difficult. But they've been up longer. You might be there longer. There's more employees for you to maybe get along with. So
I feel like you can have a little bit based off of that, the clinic and everything. You can still have that like family atmosphere, no matter what. And I think that's a consistency you'll see across the board. Like within the place you're actually working, you can still have that clicky though. You can get a little clicky.
I feel sometimes. Like as you get bigger, it becomes more clicky.
Well, so I feel like you get that family atmosphere within the clinic you're at, and then from there, it's clicky between clinics. So if you go over to one, or you transfer, or you move, or anything, like it could be hard, like feeling like you belong in a way.
Because I feel like that's the same, even if you get to like the corporate level. If you do like a corporate level holiday party, it's just gonna be like cliques here and there.
Yeah.
This is the group that they hang out with. There's a group that they hang out with. Just as you grow, it'll still feel, like your location, like you said.
I think it's just
kind of family oriented.
Which makes sense though, because of the fact that you are seeing those people every single day practically. Except for maybe
that in position as well.
Yeah.
I feel like positional wise, like the PTAs usually hang out with the PTAs. The techs usually hang out with the techs. The PTs with the PTs. Some mingle with each other, but I feel like I
think it depends. I think it depends on who you have, because I feel like when we first worked at our small business, with the first group we had, that, we would say it was really, really good that we were set. All of us would hang out with each other when we would actually let the other clinics. We were the clicky clinic. Where we were
True,
closer.
We were the clicky clinic.
Granted, we did not exclude people if they came over. We tried to make them feel very welcome into our atmosphere, but naturally we would hang out and sit together when we did full group things. So I feel like you can have the clicky groups, which it turned into more later, where these three techs only talk to this one PT and this one tech over there, and it was their little group, and they wouldn't they just didn't open anything up. And I think that's more of the clickiness. So you could just, I think, have it a little bit
we'll just put that under a con.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to put it, but I'm putting it under a con.
Oh, I'm putting it totally under a con. But I'm still saying you can have it. I think that's the thing, is it can go either way. You can have that family atmosphere, or you can have that clickiness. And so that's a pro or con, depending on what you get. And then the other thing I would say is pro is you still get a little bit of input and say. Because usually the owner's not, he's still within the business, but not really working it as much, or not around as often. But your input usually gets heard a little bit better. I wouldn't say it always gets validated. Is that the best word I would say?
Acknowledged.
It would get acknowledged, but it doesn't mean it's going to change anything.
Yeah.
They might just tell you this is the way it is. Where in a small business, they might, with mom and pop, they might try to work around it. But at least it's validated, it's heard, and it might be addressed. So I would say that's, to me, a little bit more of a pro still versus like a con. As we get into like the corporations, you'll kind of see why I put it as a pro. Other thing is oh my gosh, I blinked. Where'd it go? I had another thought and I don't remember it now. Sorry, my dog's trying to get in.
Yeah, your dog is trying to get in.
He's trying to break in. He's like, I hear Ken. Let me in. You can't do this to me. I didn't let him see Ken before.
But he's being considerate, though. He's scratching the door, but very softly, so that...
Yeah, he knows.
It's like, I don't want to disturb you guys,
busted.
but
where your
just
dog
in
is
case...
like, I'm breaking through
this my dog's
door.
trying to chew the door open. Anyways.
But, yeah, so that would say is my pro on that. Con. Benefits. And we forgot to talk about benefits in mom and pop shop.
Yeah, I was just going to hit benefits like as a huge pro when it came to corporations and just ignored them on the other levels.
So I will say that is a con in small business is usually the benefits are not good.
Small business and down.
Yeah.
Because I was going to go with HR too. Like HRs don't really exist in small business and down. You just talk to the manager. Yeah. And that's your HR.
And if you have a problem with the manager, it doesn't really go well.
That goes really bad.
You don't
so there's no outside party that's gonna like be impartial with small business and down. Yeah. So unfortunately there's been like multiple situations where people did want to contact HR or a form of HR within those small businesses, but because it doesn't really exist, the person you might be trying to talk about might be the person you need to talk to about it. Which just makes for an awkward situation. Which I mean, you're confronting, but you might build drama. You might just feel uncomfortable about it. You might feel like you might get uncomfortable afterwards. So then you don't address it, and now you're just kind of miserable, wanting to quit. So I feel like that happens more maybe in that small business than a mom and pop shop. But
I agree on that.
We'll kind of get out of that as we go into the corporation level.
Yeah. Are we missing anything on that?
That's all I got.
Okay, yeah, I think that's all I can think of right now for small businesses. I will say the other thing for small business actually is that you get a little more leeway usually with the PTs you're working with on like how to treat and that kind of stuff. I feel like your input is valid, just like in
the mom and pop shops.
Mom and pop shop. So.
Well, going on to the corporation level, so kind of like we said, the first two, we'll do benefits and HR. So if you do have an issue and you address it with somebody that's not within that clinic, there's usually a dedicated HR that you can talk to about it, and then they'll figure out a way to approach it. The second one is the benefits. So when I was working in a small business, I interviewed for a corporation, which was the same corporation in which I did my rotation at. And the downside was the pay. Corporations don't really pay as much, but the benefits almost outweighed that. So as far as PTO, as far as health benefits, as far as how much do they cover, as far as floating holidays, sick days, all of that almost outweighed the fact that you're not getting paid as much as you would in the small business and mom and pop shops.
I 100% agree with that.
So that's why I almost took it. It's just sounds really good compared to like when you don't have it. It's like, wow, I get how much time off? I get 5 floating holidays and my sick days don't even count towards that. Like right off the bat, as soon as I get hired, plus bonuses typically, it's like, okay.
Yeah, and then usually
this is very tempting.
The thing is too is they have set raises. Set raises. Set raises is a big thing.
Annual reviews. How to actually get better at what you're doing.
In fact, I have a 60-day review coming up. We were supposed to do a 30-day, and that never happened.
Let's see.
My 60-day is supposed to be... My 60 days happening like 2 weeks before my 90 days.
So I was in a small business for 5 years. I never got a yearly review.
Yep.
I've been now in a mom and pop shop for 6 months, but it's only been 6 months.
Yeah.
And we haven't really done much, so.
Yeah. And even when I was in the small business, after like a month of working, I had to go to them and be like, anything you want me to adjust or work on or improve for myself since I've been here?
It's just not really a thing.
Yeah. And then raises, you always have to ask for them in a way. Like they're not.
Oh, I hated that.
They're not given.
It's like, oh, if you want a raise, like, why didn't you ask? Like, what? Like, when do I ask?
Yeah.
Because then you feel like you have to justify your raise versus like an annual review. It's like, hey, this is what you're doing right. This is what you could improve on, and then they might address the whole raise situation there.
Yeah.
But without that review, you just randomly walk. Hey, I've been here for a year. I was hoping maybe we can discuss a raise. And then it's like, oh, well, what do you feel like you've done to deserve a raise?
Or you almost have to quit and then come back.
Oh, I don't even want to touch on that. That still boils my blood.
But the thing is, too, is that also can be a con in corporations because corporations do have a set amount of like raise you can get. And also they have a set amount of usually pay you can get. No, doesn't matter where you've worked. Doesn't matter. It's just based off of the years you've worked. Doesn't matter how good you are. You're pretty much just flat against the same people. And it's like if you're going all the way out of your way and you're doing amazing and you're doing this extra work, there's no true way of like really rewarding that in corporations because they've got so many like special like ceilings that you can't hit, or if that makes sense, like there's just a cap in a way.
There's like little barriers
so like you almost sometimes have to leave to go somewhere else to get better pay and then come back, and even then they're usually like, oh well, it's that. So you might feel like you're always chasing your pay that you deserve. So that is a con, I will say, with corporations. Another con is I might just put it out there, all the freaking training, yearly training. Which
it's like, I haven't done any training.
Technically, it's good for them to have, and I get why they do it. It's all like the cultural HR, this is how we run things. This is the new things for this year. This is how, it's just that training. But, man, it's boring. And you've heard it a million times.
You have to do it every year?
Mm-hmm.
That's
ethics training. That's what it's called. And so it's just kind of like, I don't know. For me, it just drives me nuts because I'm like, it's common sense. Be a good person. Like that's
how much are you down for it?
You know what I mean?
Like how much downtime does it take to finish all your trainings?
Depends on if you actually listen to them or not.
Like, do you have to do it on your own time or while you're at the clinic and they close you out?
So if I'm running behind, that's the nice thing about the place I'm at. If I'm running behind, with it, she'll block me. She's good with that. And I can't say all corporations are good with that. But technically, since it is training and it's required training, it has to be paid. It's on their time. So if you do it off your time, stop doing that and tell them, hey, I have this training I need to get done. It's required. I need overtime for it or I need to be blocked out for it. Any required training has to be paid for. Any required event has to be paid for. They cannot require it if they're not going to pay for
it. Speaking on the blocking you out, as far as productivity, I know when I was at the corporation, it's something they looked at as far as your yearly review. When it came to the small business, it's not something they really looked at just because like people would share schedules so much.
Yeah.
As far as now, the mom and pop shop, I don't think it really exists at all. It's more of a clinic goal versus an individual goal. You spending more time in a corporation now. Do you have goals that you have to hit as far as productivity, patient seen?
Not so much because I think we're kind of a smaller location in general. Like we can't they don't like to double book, which is just a weird concept. So I don't think it's that. It's more about maximizing your billing, I would say, that they're big on. Which I've learned so much on how to really benefit. Like you've seen it. I've talked to you about my billing of how I'll get units for days out of people. Appropriately though. Let me put that out there. That
a little sub note.
That is appropriately justified. But when I worked inpatient and it was all about productivity. And I can't tell you how many people were doing notes off the clock because of the productivity rate. And I think it's an unjustified and unfair thing within the larger corporations that are inpatient because life doesn't go perfectly. And like I get why they kind of have it because they don't want someone on the clock and just taking 10 years when you really should. But like, I don't think it should be something that's so focused on in a way, because like there's things that just like go wrong in general. Like some of these places are huge and you're having to walk and go find a patient. Like patients aren't always in their room, or the patient always doesn't, like, you might get interrupted because families show up. Like there's things that like just don't go as planned, and that's not necessarily your fault. And I think they focus on productivity way too much. My current place, they focus a lot on reviews, which I didn't even know they did this until recently. We had our first like meeting of the month for our clinic, and come to find out, they send out text messages to the patients all the time asking about satisfactory reviews. And it is nerve-wracking, because if you get like a bad -1, that's dropping your score so much, definitely when you're in a smaller clinic.
So each of the therapists have their own like,
it's not
like score almost.
It can be if you get a negative. So say like a person comes in, they ran a note like, oh, what was bad about your experience? And they're like, oh, well, you know, Laura did this. Like that's going to come back big on you.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's kind of nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm. Like one bad person's opinion.
Like negative things always stick out more.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do a whole bunch of good deeds and people won't say anything. You do one bad thing and all of a sudden everything just like blows up.
Yeah.
So it's,
which
I don't know,
they
that
even
can be a
said
little frustrating.
they're trying, they focused in the past really bad. And when we were talking about this meeting, they're like, we're really trying to focus more on the good because there's more good. We'll address the bad ones if we need to.
Yeah.
But they're like, it could just been that person was on a bad day, or, you know, they wrote it and they thought something happened because you did it, but really it wasn't your fault or something like that. So like, that's the thing. The one nice thing about pro with corporations is time off, I do find can be easier in some way, because they're big on you taking your time off, and they usually have a little more options of coverage and moving things around, and they can prep for it a little bit better. So like that I would say is a little bit more convenient. Like I had some family, as we know, I had some family emergency comes up, and when I worked in small business, calling out that day, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like I never did it because of the fact that
the rest of us would be screwed.
Yeah, it would have been so bad, and like they wouldn't handle it really well. Like they would still try to operate just as normal.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because when I was at the corporation, one of the things I asked, because I was considering going back there to work, I was like, oh, how is it to request time off?
Yeah.
Because for me, that's also a big thing. Like if I can get time off, then I'm going to burn out. I'm not going to want to be there. So I was like, is it difficult to get time off?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, as long as you have the PTO, just put it in and they'll block you out.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that sounds very easy compared to like, oh, let me make sure we have the coverage. Oh, no, we don't. You can only take these 2 days out of the 5 that you requested. And it's like, well, that kind of ruins everything. Like it's not worth it at that point.
Yeah, like I had really no pushback. I just let my PT know that in a couple months that we'll be taking vacation and going on a trip to Hawaii, and it was just like, give me the date so I can get you coverage. We can find you coverage that day. But like there was no like yes, no. And I don't know how it works with part-time, because I am part-time, and that's a little different because we don't get PTO. Do we just get to take vacation as we want? Like, I don't know. We're about to find out, because I got a lot this year.
You had a lot of PTO. Oh, a lot of vacation requests.
Possibly, yeah. We'll see how it all goes, but we'll see. They only know about the one. But that's because the other one's not fully set yet, I would say. But it is easier, I feel like, to be like, hey, I need this time off, and there's a little bit more leeway, or if something is to come up, because they have an HR, they're a little bit more lenient on understanding, like, you know, not pushing back in a way, because they know like they need to in a way be a little bit considerate, I guess you could say. The other thing I would say that is a con, there's less change you can make within the clinic. This is the way it's done, this is the way it's run, and this is how we're going to do it.
It's just that most of their clinics, especially when it gets to that level, they all run the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to make change at one clinic when you have 16 other clinics and they're not going to also do what you're trying to change at that clinic.
Yeah.
Small changes for sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And treatment's going to be slightly different and everything like that. But, like, say, like, for example, we apparently had the wrong type of wipes. And I'm like, who really cares? They're all bacteria, like, wipes. Like, does it really matter? Like, it's not that big of a deal, but apparently it was. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I didn't even order, but I was just, like, in my mind, I'm like,
they're just wipes.
They're just wipes, guys. They're literally hospital grade wipes for all of them. Like, will work. Or like I had suggested, and at first there was a little bit of pushback, but then there actually wasn't. So, for example, you know those wipe containers. How much juice is at the bottom of them?
Of the wipe containers?
Yeah, when you're done, there's so much of that like actual liquid left, right? And we had a couple incidences where we ran out of wipes and they got back ordered and then it got pushed. Like, we just were using like Lysol wipes, which we weren't supposed to, and that kind of stuff. And then we were running out of those because we thought our shipment was coming in. So I had suggested, I was like, well, we have these spray bottles. Let's just take the juice from the wipes and put it in the spray bottles. And at first she goes, well, we can't do that. I'm like, well, why not? I was like, there's no difference. That's the chemical.
That's like the cleaning solution.
That's the cleaning solution. The wipes themselves are just
absorbing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, and then we can use this and spray it on the bed and keep it as a backup. And then finally she kind of came around to it, but it was like, in a way, pushback of like, we can't do that. We're in
like, it's not the norm when it comes to the corporation. Yeah. Like,
but we do that.
They're like, okay, maybe Laura's onto something.
Well, one of my PTs is like, I like that idea. We'll keep you around. I'm like, thanks. But like, and I would definitely say like, there's less flexibility of like, if you need like to leave half a day or something like that, it can be a little troublesome. It feels like there's just a lot more approval steps in a way for something like that too, because then it's like time off where if you work at a mom and pop shop and you're just like, hey, I have an appointment at 2:00. Is there any way I can like leave a little early or something like that? Then they're fine. The other con I would say for big corporation is they always feel like you need to be doing something. Even if like it's downtime and you've been working really hard and you're, just finishing catching up on notes, like they always feel like you need to be moving and doing something, which I get it. You don't like, definitely if you got a lot of those downtimes, but if you've been busy all day, it's okay just to kind of decompress and chill for a second before having to get up and do something.
It again. Yeah.
Like if you get a 20-minute break, then hey, it's okay. You don't need to be doing something for that 20 minutes if you caught up on everything. But I feel like they feel like you need to be doing something all the time. And that's the only thing I would say downtime wise.
Yeah, when I went to my rotation, so they scheduled patients back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you always have to be doing something. So if your patient didn't show up on time, you're responsible for calling them, asking them where they are, or rescheduling them, whatever the case may be. If they're not coming in and they're canceled, now you're in charge of care calls.
Yeah.
Like there's always something that you have to do.
Me, it's always cleaning the full clinic. And I'm the type of person where I don't mind that. I like to be busy. I don't like just to sit there because I feel weird. I'm very big on like, I don't like to waste people's time. But I'm talking like if you are catching up on your notes, like, so like that's a big thing is like when you have downtime, first thing is you catch up on your notes. It's usually, you try to call the patient, but say you don't have a patient schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Catch up on your notes, make sure everything looks good, really optimize everything. And then from there, say you have a patient coming in the next like 20 minutes. Like it's okay not to do something for that 20 minutes. Like it's okay just to have a moment of just decompress in a way. And I feel like sometimes they struggle with that in the corporation world. So that's that one. I'm trying to think if there's anything we missed.
I mean, I'm sure there's something we missed.
Oh, there's probably a lot in all, but
I think there's just things that come to mind as we think about it.
Yeah, I would say another pro of corporations is if you either move areas within your state or even sometimes out of state, you can more likely transfer versus having to find a new job. So that is a pro for that if you like the company. So, but yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up on at least this session. That's all I can kind of think of. You.
That's all I got.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and wrap up today's episode. I know it's a little bit longer. When we get rolling, you guys know how it is. We just can talk for days.
We talk more than we think we talk.
I know, right? We're always like, oh, this episode won't be that long. And then it's like always around
40 minutes later.
But don't forget, we are back to uploading twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. Look at me, I got it right. And then we are coming back with some
I was about to say, it's not Wednesdays, it's not Wednesdays. That's what I'm thinking to myself.
However, though, we are coming back with some more episodes on YouTube, so don't forget to check those out. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, where we're the most active. We do post a couple times on Twitter, mainly about the episodes, but, you can always hit us up there. And we've got some fun stuff.
Also the Discord.
Oh, yeah, and then the Discord. Always shout out to the Discord.
We realize that our link may have not been working.
So
someone kindly let us know.
Yes.
So we have a new link up there. If it doesn't work,
please
let us know so we can fix it yet again.
I think we got it right this time.
I think we got it right,
but
just in case.
Yeah. But yeah, reach out to us. If you guys want to come on and be a guest, please reach out to us. We've got a couple that we have set up or setting up soon, and we're excited for those. One, I'll give you a hint. Hopefully, if it all works out, we are diving deeper into animal rehabilitation. So I'm excited for that one. I'm so excited.
I have so many questions.
So many.
I always have so many questions.
Oh my gosh. But all right, till next time, guys.
Take care. The information in this video or podcast is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained in this video or podcast is for general information purposes only and does not replace your professors or a consultation from your own doctor or healthcare professional.